Okay, kids, I am back with a workout video, and I believe I have solved my audio problems through a lot of experimentation. So that means I'll be doing more of these in the future. So that should be fun because I do enjoy making these and kind of sharing my training and my thoughts with you. And actually, today I am going to share with you some of the things that I do to stay motivated to train at a fairly high level, I think, and with consistency. Uh, and that involves kind of my internal dialogue and how I compare myself to others and the emotional climate that I try to uh, create internally and externally. So we'll talk about those things, but just to give you a thumbnail sketch of what this workout was. This is actually a 2.5 hour workout. My powerlifting buddies come in at 5 o'clock, so I showed up at about 4:10 before they got there, and I'm working on clean and jerks. So I worked on clean and jerks until about 5 o'clock. And then we switched to deadlifts, and for me it was box squats and leg presses and safety squats and back extensions. So that's kind of what I did, and I'll interject along the way when there are noteworthy lifts that I'd like to tell you about. So on the topic of motivation, this has always been near and dear to my heart, and I really think that we all have the same 24 hours in a day, and if we can find some way to motivate ourselves, and what I mean by motivation, what that literally means is to make yourself moved, to animate yourself, then, you can make the most of whatever your genetics happen to be. And so, the old saying is you can't control the hand that was dealt to you, but you can kind of control how you play that hand. So I'm very interested in just focusing on the factors that we are able to control as athletes. I've got all sorts of shortcomings, but when I was in college studying for sociology, the point was made repeatedly that an undesirable condition to which there's no solution is not a problem. I mean, people don't talk about bad weather as being a problem. Oh, you know what? I'm actually wrong about that, because people who kind of do the global warming thing think that there is a solution. So I just caught myself there. But I don't share that belief. But if I'm 6'2" and have long femurs, which means that I don't have optimal lifting levers, then that's not a problem. It just is. It might be undesirable, but there's nothing I can do about that. So what you can do something about is your behaviors and your ability to motivate successful behaviors. And one of the things I think that people do, and I certainly do, and I'm sure that you do as well, is we tend to compare ourselves to others. And that's just a very natural thing, and particularly if you are a competitive person. You are always sort of lining yourself up with what your peers can do, and that's one way to judge your success. I mean, that's just kind of natural. I mean, what else would you compare it to? I mean, you can just compare your success to your own success. Today, as a matter of fact, I did a 145-pound military press, and my best ever is 143, so that was an all-time PR, so that matters. But one of the ways that we just gauge our level of success is comparing ourselves to others. And there are two ways you can make that comparison. You can compare up, or you can compare down. And so just as an example of this is 110 pounds on the bar, just for reference. Just as an example of these types of comparisons, I am going to give you two contrasting narratives about myself. And these narratives are 180 degrees apart from each other in terms of how they make me look as an athlete, but they're also both 100% factual. So here is the first narrative. If I compare myself to other men who are 55 years old, I am probably in the top 1% when it comes to athleticism and strength and body composition and probably overall health. And I have won in the 100% Raw Powerlifting Federation. I've won my division in World Championships twice. So I'm a two-time World Championship champion in that federation. And I am also, for the AAU, I am a one-time World Champion in my division, which I did last year. And, you know, if you were to ask me, how often do I run across another guy my age who is as strong and as muscular as I am? It almost never happens. If I'm just walking around on the street, it might happen once a year, maybe not even that much. So all of that is absolutely true. Now, here's another narrative that does not portray me in quite as flattering a light. I know many men my age and older who could just kick the living crap out of me in terms of Olympic lifting, powerlifting, muscularity, strength, athleticism. There are just so many people. I mean, I know of men who are, you know, in their 60s who could put me to absolute shame. This is 154 pounds on the bar. And you know what? As I cruise the social networks, I see plenty of women who are stronger and more athletic than I am. So, you know, so there's another narrative that really is not so flattering, and that's also 100% accurate. So these sorts of self-comparisons this is 165 pounds on the bar. These kinds of comparisons are kind of like statistics. And, you know, the old saying is you can make statistics say whatever you want them to say, depending on how you massage the numbers. That's very, very true. And it's also true that you can make these self-comparisons say whatever you want them to say. So they're both true, but they're just taken from kind of a different perspective. So here is how you put this stuff to use for yourself. And before I get into that, I will. This was a recent personal record for the clean and jerk. It's 187 pounds. It's the most I've done since 2010. So I was happy about that. But here's the deal on self-comparison. You know, if I need a kick in the pants and I need to really get moving, I will remind myself of all of the women out there who can lift more than I can, and all the men my age and older who can lift more than I can, or who have better physiques, or who are more muscular or more athletic, or whatever the case might be. So when I need a kick in the butt and I need to get myself in gear, I will remind myself of those comparisons. And on the other hand, if I'm having, you know, a tough day in the gym, and I'm getting kind of depressed about my lack of progress or my perceived lack of progress, you know, then I will look at the other narrative. I will remind myself of how well I am doing when I compare myself to other men my age. So you can kind of choose whatever narrative that kind of motivates you to the behaviors that you need to get the results that you want to get. So it's kind of your choice. You can kind of choose, you know, your perspective, and it is perspective. There is no single objective, accurate way to look at that. That's a 405, by the way, and I then went to 455, which is this right here. That was fairly hard. Then you'll see me actually miss a 485 next. I just didn't have a good setup for that. Here's the 485, which was slightly disappointing. Just was not there for that. And then my training partners kind of lined up the bar with 495, which is 5 plates, so I just took that. So I'll pause for a second here while you watch this. This is probably about 2.5 inches. This is 495. And you could pretty much time this with a calendar, but I did get it. So that was that. So my whole point is that you can kind of choose your perspective on how well you're doing, depending on what you need to motivate yourself to do the right things. So if it helps you and motivates you to compare up, then compare up. If it motivates you to compare down, then compare down. You can kind of choose your perspective on these things, and that's one of the things that that I use and I am kind of mindful of, all the time. Another important strategy, and I've written about this a couple of times before, is kind of creating your own internal and external, I suppose, emotional climate, rather than just reacting to circumstances and being kind of like a cork on the waves. So, and the ability to do this really separates good athletes from less successful athletes. You need to kind of dictate your mood and your energy levels, and you can dictate those things. And part of how you can do that too is to kind of proactively set yourself up with a good training environment externally. And in these videos you'll see my training partners in the background, Chris and Ryan and Andre. And these guys are guys who are younger and bigger and stronger than me in almost every case. And in a given session, they lift more weights than I do in terms of total volume. They move faster than I do. And so that kind of by osmosis kind of brings you to their level. It encourages you to push harder and faster than you would otherwise. This is 185 pounds for box squats, which I'm doing because I can kind of target my quads a little bit better with that type of a squat. So I'm squatting about twice a week these days and doing different types of squats. So I did 3 sets of, I think 3 sets of 8 with 185 on this. So that's Chris and Ryan behind me. Yeah, you don't want to be the smartest guy in the room, right? You don't want to be the strongest guy in the room either. So, one comparison that I always make is against my training partners who, both Chris and Ryan bench press 350, and I'm bench pressing 265. So, that's when I need a kick in the pants. That's the reminder I give myself. I don't really care if they're in their 30s and I'm 55. That's what I'm really trying to accomplish. So, so anyway, that's just a little bit in terms of my thought process. I think, I try to just use whatever psychology ends up being pragmatic. The stuff that goes on inside my head is just designed to produce a result. So the ends justify the means, in my opinion, when it comes to that kind of stuff. And make no mistake, I have off days, lots of off days. And I think last year I did 52 deadlift workouts, which resulted in a 5-pound improvement in my deadlift over the course of 52 weeks. So, I'm not making the kind of progress I was making as a beginner. So if I focused on that, that would depress the heck out of me. But the other way I can look at it is that most men who are 55 are, they're slipping pretty rapidly and, getting worse and worse and worse with every year. So if I can get even slightly better every year, then I'm way, way, way ahead of the trend. So, there's another example of 2 narratives, and just depending on what I need to get my ass in gear, I will look at those narratives. So, so that's all on that subject. And while we finish off the rest of this video, I will just make a point that yes, that's me doing leg presses. People who know me from way back would be just startled to see this. But you know what? I'm very weak in the quads, and I need more quadricep, and by that I mean more muscle tissue and more strength. It's a weak link in my clean and jerk. It's a weak link in my squat. I'm sure it's a weak link in my deadlift, and it's a weak link in my physique. And so when I do a leg press with my feet low on the platform like that, and kind of controlling the tempo and pausing a little bit and pushing from the toes, that really helps me to kind of engage those quads, which really don't like to engage at all. And the guys had the safety squat bar set up with 155 pounds, so I just jumped in there and took a set of 10, which is kind of a little bit uncharacteristic for me, but after the core lift is done, I'm trying to just think like a bodybuilder. So on the core lift, you're just trying to find the easiest way to lift the most weight possible, safely, of course. And once those core lifts are done, in my case it was the clean and jerk and the deadlift, now I'm kind of in bodybuilding mode and I'm trying to just develop muscle tissue. I'm just trying to pack down some volume and build some quads, build some triceps. I've given up on calves, but I used to say that I couldn't build my calves. I wouldn't say that anymore. I would just say it's not worth the time and effort it would take. It would take too much energy away from other things that are more important to me, so it's just a decision I've made to just not stress about it. You know, could I put 3/4 of an inch on my calves if I train them 6 days a week for an hour and a half? Yeah, I'm sure I could, but you know, I'm just not down with that, so that's the way that goes. So I'm going real slow descent, pause at the tuck, pushing from the toes. My heels are actually off that platform a little bit. If you have trouble feeling your quadriceps on a leg press or a hack squat, try that sometime. Don't do it on a squat, but try that sometime. I think you'll be impressed. I learned that back years ago from a guy named Jerry Telly. And then we finished off with just 3 sets of 10 on back extensions, 150 pounds. These were feeling weak for me today. But nonetheless, we got it in. We're the only guys in this gym that use additional weight for back extensions for some reason. This is just kind of maintenance work for me. My posterior chain is way ahead of my quadriceps, as I've mentioned already. But, you know, it took me maybe 9-10 minutes to do 3 sets of this, so there's not much in the way of resources expended. So to me, it strikes me as being worth doing. That's another benefit of a leg press, by the way. You don't really have to do much in the way of setting up and warming up. You can just kind of jump on and go. And it kind of spares your low back as well. So you always have to look at things not in terms of just the result, but also the resources that are consumed in the pursuit of that result. So that's all for this week. Hope you guys found this interesting. Please leave comments and questions. Love getting those. And I will see you again next time.